niña de la buena. Desde invierno hasta la primavera. Mira cómo sube, mírala cómo que suena. Mi arena no es cualquiera. Porque vive el mal humor y dice adiós a las penas. Vamos a bailar con las chicas de Ipanema. Celosa, celosa, pero cariñosa, porque todo el tiempo te quiero para mí. Celosa, celosa, pero dadivosa, me has dicho muchas veces que conmigo eres feliz. Celosa, celosa, pero muy fogosa, estando aquí juntitos, ¿para qué quieres salir? Celosa, celosa, pero bien mañosa, no vengas a decirme que no te lo advertí.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome. Yeah, thank you. I like this interactivity. This is fantastic. Let's see, I want to say mi casa es su casa, but it's not really mi casa. It's all of ours. This is the National Cultural Center. This is the Kennedy Center, but welcome. My name is Garth Ross. I'm our Vice President for Community Engagement, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to this discussion following the extraordinary work Shelter. And before I even say anything else, I have to raise a piece of paper, and you all can raise your glasses to these wonderful actors. Wherever you are in the room, the actors, please stand up and take another bow and another round of applause. So as my team knows, I'm a little obsessed sometimes with this notion of why, what, and how. So first I want to say why we're all here. In alignment with the Kennedy Center President Deborah Rudder's goal of promoting the role of artists and art in society, and also to increase the utilization of the Kennedy Center as a platform for pressing dialogues on arts, culture, and society, and then finally to act responsively to the opportunities created by working in collaboration with partners, locally and nationally. We're producing these moderated discussions, and we call them salons. And I did say mi casa es su casa, and that is entirely the spirit of this evening. So the bar is open, there's food over here, we hope the room is comfortable, we have wonderful DJs. Please give it up for our DJs here. Cheers. And tonight is very much about before, during, and after. So before, we had a wonderful performance. We came in here, we had some food and drink and started our conversations. Now we're going to have a bit more of a structured conversation and response to what we all saw. And we have such a great group. I mean, thank you all so much for coming out. This is a wonderful group of people who are very engaged in these issues in a day-to-day way, so I'm thrilled to have this dialogue. And this is really this is one of the ways in which the arts begins to have ripple effects out into society when we are able to come together and respond to a work like Shelter. So in that vein, I just want to point out that on everyone's table there are some 3x5 cards. So if you have a question, please just write it on the card, hold it up, and a member of our staff will come by and pick. See, look how Diana is doing that. Someone will come by and pick that up, and we will hand those off to our moderator, and it's kind of a way for us to keep the conversation flowing so that we are in fact responding to the questions in the audience, but allowing the moderator to keep the conversation flowing. So we have an extraordinary moderator, Ricardo Ortiz from Georgetown University. You come on up and join us. Thank you. And tonight's event is, I said it's about collaboration with partners. Georgetown has been and continues to be an extraordinary partner. They are hosting the Theater Communications Group TCG Conference, which is the occasion on which Shelter came from LA to Washington, D.C. So we're very much grateful to TCG and to Georgetown for this all coming together. I also want to just point out that we are working in a close collaboration with an organization called Art Change US, which is really looking at how demographics are shifting in the U.S. and how the arts and culture sector can and should change along with them. And it was the leader of that initiative, Roberta Uno, who initially reached out to us to say, hey, the TCG conference is at Georgetown University. This extraordinary piece is coming out. Is there something you can do at the Kennedy Center to really put a spotlight on this and get some dialogue going around this? And Marissa, wouldn't you say that we've put a spotlight on this and got some dialogue going around this? So CalArts is hosting the Art Change US initiative, and Marissa Chibas, our playwright, is with CalArts. Marissa, you want to please come on up here? Our director, Martin Acosta, please welcome her. And again, from Georgetown University, this is Susan Terrio, and her connection to this whole extraordinary tale will come out in our discussion. Please welcome Susan Terrio, Professor of Anthropology, Georgetown University. And now it's my pleasure to hand this mic off permanently to Ricardo Ortiz.
It's always a dangerous thing to give me a microphone. That's it. So I've been promised that this is going to be really chill, and at some point I'm going to get a bunch of questions from you in the audience on cards. But to begin tonight, I think we should probably just take a moment to be reflective about the lives of the actual people that this piece is meant to represent in its extraordinarily artistic way. And we have at least one representative of this population in our audience today. I'm going to hand this mic over to Austin from Georgetown, who's going to introduce him, and this is how we will begin. In the meantime, please ask your questions and write them on your cards.
Thank you so much. My name is Austin Rose. I'm a student at Georgetown University and used to volunteer at Catholic Charities of Baltimore Immigration and Legal Services. That's how I met Williams. Williams received special immigrant juvenile status like about 2 years ago, which is a form of legal status for kids, unaccompanied minors who are abused, abandoned, or neglected in their home countries. So Williams is going to tell his story.
Hello. I'm about to read my story, okay? I am 20 years old. I used to live in El Salvador, but my father got drunk almost every day. He used to beat me several times each week. He used ropes, belts, and then a machete. I still had scars on my hands and legs. My mother could not stop him. I was hungry because we don't have much money. My father spent our money on alcohol and women. He made me work since I was 11 years old. He beat me. Sorry. He beat me if I don't work fast enough. In middle school, he made me work from 6 o'clock to 11:30 every morning. And then I had to work an hour to go to school. In high school, he made me work from night shift, and I could not eat because I don't have enough money. I was so tired and hungry and scared. Then I failed school twice. My father beat me for that. Even though he didn't want me to go to school. I couldn't take it anymore after my father beat me with a machete, so I left the country. I was scared to leave my home and family, but I was more scared to stay. The trip was very hard. For some of it, I rode on the top of the train, the Bestia, and almost fell off. I walked for many days and walked for 7 hours in the desert. I had to sleep on floors and try the box for some bugs. Some people I was with got robbed and treated with guns. My brother and sister had the same problems I did. My father beat them also. One day, after I had left home, he came after my sister with a machete and said that he was going to kill her. So she ran away from home and came to U.S. after I did. My life in Maryland is wonderful. My elder brother is my guardian. He takes care of me great. He gives me enough food and clothing and everything else I need. He helped me with my homework, and I had my own bedroom. I did well in school. I graduated early this month, and I had a job, and I active in my church. I plan to go to college and become an engineer. I am not afraid anymore. I have my green card, and I am on my track to become a U.S. citizen. I want to contribute to my community and my church, helping others, working as an engineer, and paying taxes. I cannot wait to be a full citizen in both. I love this country and the opportunities it gives me, and I love my brother who keeps me safe. Thank you.
So, is this on? It is on, okay. I'm happy to begin by just giving each of you an opportunity to reflect if you want openly, and then we'll see if questions start to come up. Once we take care of our technical difficulty.
Okay. Do you want me to start?
If you-
Okay.
yeah, sure.
So thank you very much to all of you for coming. Let me just explain, because my role isn't as obvious as Marissa and Martin's. So Marissa and I connected when she read an article in the LA Times. I was interviewed at a time when I was writing a book on the federal custodial system for unaccompanied, undocumented minors in the US. And I had done research in federal shelters, in immigration courts, and I had followed kids from the time they were apprehended, designated as unaccompanied, put into federal custody, and then released. I also followed them into the federal immigration courts where they were prosecuted for unlawful entry. And finally, I followed a group of kids, 40 in all, after their release, after they got legal status, and were trying to build lives in this country. So like Marissa in this play, my book, although I did lots of interviews, actually centers on just 6 kids, and it follows them from the time that they decided to leave their home countries, their journey across Mexico to and across the US border, when they were apprehended, what happened to them during the journey, how they've experienced custody, and then their release afterward. And so when Marissa and I made contact, we realized that we had a lot to say to one another. And she did a lot of research on stories, on the interviews that she did with kids, and I collected a lot of stories. So we decided that I would share some of the stories that I published in my book. My book appeared last year. And I would just like to say something about the theater as well. Ricardo and I are academics, and we spend our lives reading and writing books and articles. And while that's really important to educate our peers in the academy, our students, and the larger public on certain really important issues, as a long devotee of the theater arts, I think there is nothing like a live performance based on incredibly brilliant writing, direction, and set design. It's an immediate visceral experience, and it has a unique capacity to touch us, to dispel stereotypes, to create empathy with the characters that were so brilliantly played by these young actors. For the few hours we share their lives. And theater also has the capacity to change public opinion and to even reshape a political landscape. So I think it's really important. And if I could just say a couple of other things about Shelter. I was fortunate enough to see this play when it was first presented in LA. My husband and I flew out to LA, and we saw it presented outside in a public park, free and open, and in a community that was largely Latino. And it was an incredibly moving experience. But when I saw the play, I was thinking of the different meanings of shelter. And shelter, first of all, as we saw so dramatically portrayed, means escape from home countries where social inequality is incredibly high, where livable wages are very scarce, and where violence is a scourge in the home and in the community. And we see kids who have personally experienced an increase in lawlessness, in political corruption, in extrajudicial killings, and in the havoc that is wreaked by gangs that infest all areas of their lives. And what we really should think about is that migration is a hedge against a social or a physical death if these kids decide to stay in their home countries. So that's one sense of shelter. Another is the temporary, the fragile but really important bond that we see that is formed among these young fellow travelers. It keeps at bay some of the terrors of the journey, but at the same time, we are aware of the horrific dangers that they encounter. So it's a temporary respite from some of those terrors. And finally, I think we need to think also about the literal term shelter, because half of the play is about kids who are apprehended by Border Patrol, excuse me, who are then transferred to the custody of ORR shelters, Office of Refugee Resettlement Shelters. And in the first few weeks, there is relief. There is a sense of welcome, but there's also an uncertainty, and that was dramatized really powerfully because they don't know how long they're going to stay. It is not their decision when they're reunified and with whom they're reunified. So there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. So shelter is ambiguous. And I think the questions that I think I would like us all to think about tonight is the legal pull and tug between the constitutional guarantee in this country of due process and equal protection, regardless of legal status, on the one hand, also the government's responsibility to take care of vulnerable populations, wherever they come from. And finally, what is the state's interest in immigration enforcement and border security? So I would just like to sort of end by savoring the end. When the young people stand up, they face front, they list their positive attributes, and they remind us that they are our future and we really need to support them.
If there's anything else.
Natty said.
Okay. First, thank you, William, for sharing what you shared. You're very courageous, and it's for you that we created this project. And thank you to the Kennedy Center and Garth and Diana and Baye and the whole Kennedy Center team for bringing these stories here, and TCG. We feel very honored to be able to bring the stories from Los Angeles and share it with this community here. It's a very important moment, we feel, to do that. A little bit of the genesis of how this happened, in the winter of 2014, I was recuperating from, or healing from, a major spine surgery and the loss of my mother. And at that time, I had a lot of time. And this story kept coming back to me that I had read years ago about this young, teenage, mentally challenged Mexican-American boy, U.S. citizen from Texas, who had been deported and to Mexico. And his family didn't know where he was for 3 weeks. And they were finally reunited, but I started reading about this, term, unaccompanied migrants, and I thought, how is this even possible? That a child gets sent back to another country. And so I started to do some reading, mostly in different blogs and things like that. And then I read the article in the LA Times. It came out on a Sunday. And 2 people were quoted that caught my attention, Susan, and her book was mentioned, and then as well PhD candidate Elizabeth Kennedy and Fulbright scholar, who at the time was in El Salvador working with some kids who had been deported back. And I just felt very passionately about the story and just sent an email that day on a Sunday and heard back from them both that same day. And I thought, oh, we have to tell these stories. So I went to our CalArts Center for New Performance team, Leslie Tamarabucci and Travis Preston and the rest, and Nataki Garrett, the rest of our team, and I said, we need to do a story about this, a play about this, and they immediately came on. And so we had to think of who's going to direct this. And we are fortunate to have had Martina Costa direct twice at CalArts. Once for Duende CalArts, the initiative that I run. It was a bilingual performance of an Alejandro Ricaño play done both in Los Angeles and Guadalajara. Half of the actors were from Mexico, the other half from the US. Some literally not speaking the same language and still spoke the same language, the theatrical language. And it was a very successful show, and we just knew we wanted to have Martin back to direct this. So about a year ago, so I did a year of research and then visited a shelter in San Diego. I interviewed 7 recent arrivals from the School of History and Dramatic Art near a high school where CalArts, where we have a year-long writing program, an extraordinary public school in the downtown Los Angeles area. And then we put together a team of actors who did a lot of research, and we did a workshop last spring. And through that workshop, we did a lot of improvisations and sharing of stories, and came up with the basic structure for the piece, which then we developed most recently this past winter in January, and then presented 2 versions, an indoor version and an outdoor version. And along with the show, we've been doing these youth empowerment workshops called Yo también soy un ser, I too am somebody. And focusing on the body, because one of the things that we're really seeing is the effects of the hate language on our bodies in the Latino community. So a way to counteract that is to create these physical improvisation workshops where we have our participants step into the body of a hero of their choice and feel what that's like, to carry that, to walk around with that, to write with that, to feel that kind of empowerment. And knowing, I mean, we know this neurologically, if you walk around like this, you are going to feel different than if you hold yourself another way. And beautiful things have come out of that workshop, and we're going to continue to do the workshop. So I share with you a little bit about not only the genesis of the project, but there's the play itself, but then there are other manifestations of the play. including a documentary that we're working on with the 7 students from SOTA that I interviewed, and we had panels, a lot of wonderful panels with great community partners, folks from Homies Unidos, and a lot of different parts of Teatro Jornalero was a part of our process as well. So we really had a lot of community engagement that was part of the making of this play. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that with you. ¿Quieres decir algo?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. First, when Marissa told me about this project, I thought it was, again, something about migration. And I didn't like it because as a Mexican, I hear about it all my life. I am from a little town in the center of my country, and I am very familiar with the economic migration. It's normal. Many little towns are only with women because the men come to United States. It's a big issue. It's very complicated. But 6 years ago, I hear about a massacre from 72 people from Central America in San Fernando, Tamaulipas. And that was the first time that I noticed that something very, very bad was happening in my country. Because I did never hear about it. I mean, I was thinking the only migrants were Mexican, but it's not true. When Marissa told me about the project and sent me the interviews and all this material, I was very surprising that the La Bestia crossed exactly my little town. And I didn't know. I didn't know. And I didn't know how many unaccompanied children were there. And I felt shame of it. Because it's I said, a tragedy. And finally, I were involved in this project. And I felt that we have to do something useful, beautiful, but at the same time useful, to open the minds, open the discussion of this subject. I know it's not easy for many people to understand how big is the problem, but I think I believe in theater, and that's why I believe in our play, and of course thanks to my to this amazing team of actors and the amazing team of creative people in CalArts, we can have something in common. It was beautiful, the encounter between us, because many of them didn't know anything, just like me. So we can share and learn together, and all this time. So I am very happy to finally we did, and I think we have a long way to go, even now.
We definitely have a long way to go. I have been asked to remind everyone, and actually to encourage you, if you want to be active on social media right now, that there's a hashtag for this if you're live tweeting, and it's hashtag KC, as in Kennedy Center, Shelter, DC, as in District of Columbia. FYI, now you know. Okay. I'm also obviously the one with the handheld mic and the card, so at some point I will drop something. So we're going to start with some of the questions coming from the audience, and the first one is for Marissa, and you may have answered a little bit of this in your early remarks, but I just wanted to know if you had anything else to add to a response to these two questions, and there are two. The first is, what effects have you seen from the performance of this piece? And the second is, what effects did you intend or hope for?
Okay. there were people who saw this piece who didn't even know this was going on. I know. But there were surprisingly a lot of people who didn't know and who were surprised that children, that this vulnerable community was at such risk. And we also had some people who are, have seen things at CalArts Center for New Performance who had never been to Lincoln Park before. So there was that element that was intentional, and I was very happy about. The kids themselves that we interviewed, I remember Martin saying this when he came back and saw them, because they were involved with every stage of the process. They came to the workshop, they came to a reading, they were at opening night, and they participated in the workshop, Yo También Soy un Ser, and they have changed. They have witnessed the power of their stories, and that has brought them great strength, I feel. And they've told me that, and I see that, and Martin saw that as well. And so there's an element for people who have lived through this, and I hope this is the case, that there's my story is important, right? There is nothing to be ashamed of my story, quite the contrary. This is a hero's journey. Then I will share with you one instance, because this happened a lot, and we've done this in various different locations, or even a section of the play, where people have felt, who've been through a journey like this, or their parents did, really felt this need to have this story told and to see it witnessed by others publicly, right? And there was a woman that came to the show because it was required by her teacher from UCLA. She had come to this country from Belize when she was 19, and with her child. And she said to me after the show, she said she had cried through the whole piece because she didn't realize until she started seeing the show how terrified she'd been then. And she had blocked the whole experience. She had to be strong. She had to go forward. And then once the show began, she relived it, and it was a real healing experience for her. That's exactly what I wanted. I mean, I want this to be empowering for young people who've been through it. I want it to be healing for people who've been through it or their parents did. I want it to serve as a place for conversations on this subject, and informed ones, where we know a little bit about our history, right? And how our history has contributed to this situation. These are all very much entwined for me, right?
Could I just add something to that? And I'd like to connect this back to what Williams was saying, talking about the healing and the cathartic experience that is hearing your story and telling your story. I think it's really important, Williams, that you mentioned how important education is for you and what your goals are. And I'm thinking about my experience at Georgetown as a professor. We have a lot of undocumented kids on campus, and we see them in our anthropology courses all the time, and it is really important for them to read things and to hear stories that reflect their experience, for them to identify it with it, and then still have really lofty goals that they are pursuing. So I think that's really important. And I'd like to thank you as well.
And as a professor at Georgetown who specializes in U.S. Latino literature, I can second Susan's encouragement and her point. It's really amazing to see students come up through, whatever opportunities they get in this society to do really extraordinary things under the most precarious of circumstances. So, thank you. Here are a couple of really easy questions. Well, actually, one isn't a question, and these are from the audience. It is Martin's birthday. So.
How old you are.
Yeah, that's it. I miss it.
I wondered if that would happen spontaneously. And the second is also quite easy. Susan, what's the title of your book?
Whose child am I? Unaccompanied, undocumented children in U.S. immigration custody. University of California Press. Sorry.
And I think this may be a question for Susan more than anyone else, and it's about sort of the actual sort of political and legal realities that we're discussing. Can you talk a little bit more about the judicial system here, problems with fast-tracking cases, difficulties with credible fear screening? How can the U.S. prioritize protection instead of enforcement?
Wow, that's a huge question, and it would take a long time to answer it in detail. I would start by saying that and there are immigration attorneys in this audience, one of the greatest challenges, I think you would agree, is that when these young people are apprehended, designated as unaccompanied, put into this special juvenile detention system, they are not guaranteed government-funded representation, nor do they have the right to have child advocates or guardian ad litems as they would if they were in a domestic system, if they were in a juvenile justice system or under the supervision of a family court. The other thing that was really alarming to me when I was doing this research was seeing that, you know, when these young people are apprehended, there are two immediate consequences. They're put into, and I'm using the word detention explicitly. Many of the people who work in the system prefer to call it a custodial system. I see it as a detention system. It's a mandatory detention system. Of course, the goal is reunification, but you know, it's uncertain how long they will be in the system, and that's one of the greatest sort of things that, you know, preys on them, and you saw this dramatized in the play. To whom will they be released, under what circumstances, where, etc. So mandatory detention on the one hand, but also placement in removal proceedings in the other. And the thing that is so alarming about that, the government becomes their legal guardian on the one hand, and then prosecutes them for illegal entry on the other. So you have two systems that are parallel, but not in sync. They work at cross purposes, and they produce really alarmingly dysfunctional kinds of outcomes. So that's one of the biggest challenges.
Let me say at this point, just because of the kind of conversation we're having, if anyone in the audience who may actually know something about what we're talking about and wants to contribute to and add something to an answer that we're getting, raise your hand, and if I see you, you know, I'm happy to hand you the mic to be a part of this conversation that way. But in general, we're going to try to keep it to the cards and responses from our panel. But it is a little bit more of an open conversation than we've been performing thus far. Okay, so now, and every time I do this, I'm just showing my age. We have a couple of questions that are really about interpretations of the piece. So the first is, what was the meaning, you love these questions, right? What was the meaning of the second to last section with the son who was paying for the sins of his father?
That's a great question.
The meaning
¿De qué?
de por qué hicimos eso.
Ah.
Lo que entiende.
Como qué es la idea, qué es la idea. Ay, Dios mío.
Okay.
Significación.
Yeah. Actually, the first material that I saw it was the New York Times article, and I felt it was too rational. So I tried to go to the more personal, or to go to the intimacy of the characters, which at that moment didn't exist. But thanks to the improvisation with the actors and the material that Marissa give us later, then we try to do the whole journey, you know, from the why they try to cross Mexico, leaving their houses, and what they are dreaming, and what they finally found. So I tried to do something not too much tragic, something not too much boring. I hope I did. And to find the journey as something happy and nice because they are not thinking that they will find so many troubles on the way. So they are not in pain at that moment. I felt they are children or very young people that are enjoying the journey at that moment until the reality comes. So I said it's a journey with sadness and happiness and everything that we can put in.
Quieren saber sobre la escena
Del
secuestro. So, but yeah,
Okay.
I mean, thank you. So we wanted to have a section that was historical, that referenced history in some way without being so explicit about it. And one of the big questions that I kept hearing is, how did this happen? When we did the workshop, from people who saw it, how did this happen? Well, you know, so one of the things we wanted to do is talk a little bit about the roots. And actually, there had been a scene of earlier on of the early United Fruit Company, but it was too spot on, and we really were seeking a collage. We really felt that that was the way we wanted to tell the story. It was very collage-like. So we landed on something that became very clear to me. In the 80s, I volunteered during the Death Squad period at Riverside Church in New York City in one of the sanctuary projects. And I realized the wheel of history was turning around again, and that these kids were fleeing the same violence that their grandparents were fleeing. And I wanted to point to that in some way. I wanted to point to this cycle of violence. And nothing in the piece, with the exception of the New York Times section and what we call the ICE section, right, which is like all the stages of what happens to the kids from the time they are detained, they're caught, it is not dead on. So really the idea was to reference the history and really ask the question, you know, what's your line, John? Ignorance of?
Ignorance does not excuse you from responsibility.
Yeah, so ignorance does not excuse you from responsibility. I mean, there's something about, I think we need to ask ourselves that. How will history look at us, at our decisions now, towards how we are treating these not just the children, but immigrants in general? And ask some of these questions that are posed to this young man whose father, in all likelihood, committed these atrocities, you know.
And this is an imaginary future that we don't want.
That's true. Exactly. That's right.
Exactly.
So social media once again intrudes on our conversation. There's also a CalArts hashtag, and it's hashtag shelter CNP. So C as in Carlos, N as in Nancy, P as in Patrick, shelter CNP. Hashtag shelter CNP. Okay. Another interpretive question. And yeah, so what was the meaning of the boxes, plastic bags in the drawers at the end, and the light shining at the end?
Okay, this is mine. The days, the rehearsals before the opening night, we were working with a guy from the Teatro Campesino, and he was working with the lights, machine lights. And he told me, I really liked the play, but I didn't understand what there are in the boxes. And I had that question from a teacher from CalArts before. And I was really, really upset because he asked me in a mail. And I didn't know if I had to ask to make an answer of it. But when this guy asked me, I said, I start to explain what I wanted to say to the teacher, and then I said, come on. And I said, there are fear. And he said, oh yes, I did understand, but I didn't notice. Because when you cross the desert, you fight first with your fear. And that was my interpretation of what is in the empty boxes. But the whole journey, they show at the beginning one item, blanket or something, and at the end there are in a forensic plastic bag. So I'm sorry for this, but they are dead. So they found their items in the desert. There are a great collection in the internet of these items, a huge collection of these items that people that couldn't do it, or couldn't. Yeah.
If I could just add, there's a wonderful book written by an anthropologist whose name is Jose de Leon, who just wrote about, he's an anthropologist and he's an archaeologist, and he's written about all of those items that are left behind, cataloging and sort of working back to the lives of the people who lost them and lost their lives. Of course, sorry, I can't think of the name of the book. In the land of something graves, but Jose de Leon.
Absorb that for a second, because you're right. I mean, the items themselves are so evocative and eloquent in their own, just completely, profoundly tragic way. And I think this is to all of you. Anybody wants to answer this? It's a more general question. In your opinion, what role can the arts play in addressing these issues and contributing to tangible, positive change?
I think creating spaces like this, creating potential healing, changing minds and hearts. I mean, there's no question. I do think it's different reading an article in a paper, or can be, than having, Jasmine's character look you in the eye and say, this happened to me, right? That witnessing, that presence witnessing, I think, has a great effect. I'm like Martin, I'm with Martin. I believe in the power of theater. I believe in the power of having your story told. I was 19 the first time I saw anyone of my culture reflected back to me. That's too late. We need to be hearing these stories more and more, and underrepresented communities' stories need to be told more and more.
So where was that when you were 19? Who was it?
Oh my God.
Not to put you on the spot. But
I know, you just put me on. I just had it and then it just went away. It was a film by Leona Chasso, El Super.
Oh, okay. Wow.
You've seen it?
There's more than one.
It was a wonderful film that had a real impact on me. And it was, my community was being reflected back. I'd never seen anything like that before.
And an important and underrated filmmaker who's
Yes.
who's gone on to have a really great career.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
A little bit. Making the research for this piece, I found women that are working in Veracruz state, named Las Patronas, and I didn't know anything about her. So they gave food to the migrants that they threw to the train every day of their lives for the last 25 years. So, and they do because they want it. Because they have no money, they have no support of any official institution, and they use their food. And now there are a great organization of women, but I mean regular women, and some human rights people working with them. So I did a play about them. So now I have two plays about the same subject, but in different point of view. And we did the play actually in the kitchen where they work. It was an amazing experience because in the middle of the performance, the train comes and we have to stop and go to give the food. My actors were sending the real food, the fake food belongs waiting for us for continue the performance. So if I believe that these people does this amazing job, it's because something there are very good people, and I think theater can find these other good people to do something new.
You know, when I was doing the interviews for my book, a lot of the kids that I interviewed were the recipients of the food from the Las Patronas. Yeah, that was. I would just add that what I said earlier, but also, you know, when we read the media, it's so selective. And until the surge of 2014, we weren't reading anything about this population. We knew a lot about adult immigration detention, how appalling that was, and how detention facilities are for adults. We knew about dreamers. I mean, they're a population that a lot has been written about, and we know about mixed status families, but we didn't know about this labyrinthine, constantly growing custodial detention system for unaccompanied minors. And you know, there are good things, and then there are a lot of bad things that happen to them, not only in the journey, but then sometimes in custody, and then after release, huge struggles and challenges. So I think that's something that theater can make really real and really visceral for us, and I think it's really important as well.
So let me say that I was planning to use as my next question one that's actually directed at the actors, but I saw that some of them have left the room. Are they coming back? They're still here?
They're still here.
Okay, all right. So if anybody wants to answer this question, you're welcome to come up here and take the mic and speak. Speak for. They're completely uncontroversial, I promise. I don't think you'll be able to embarrass yourselves. So, have you performed this piece outside of California? And this is to the actors. Have you performed this piece outside of California before? What have you noticed about if you have, what have you noticed about the different responses in the different locations where you've performed it?
That's a great question.
It's a really good question.
Sorry.
Andres.
What?
Andres.
Andres.
Say your name.
Speak for everyone now.
I'm Andres. Here you go. They told me to give this to you. I guess the biggest difference was when we were in California. We did it at this place called Lincoln Park, which is in the middle of a Hispanic-heavy community, and a lot of people that came to see it had actually done the journey, or known someone that had gone through these things that we described in the play. And so I guess the difference between doing it. We haven't done it outside of California, by the way. But the difference between doing it in California and doing it here was, I guess in California we were doing it for people who had gone through the experiences, and hopefully, I guess, coming here to DC and doing it for the audience that we did here was, now we'll get to do it in front of people who may actually have a possibility to do something about it. And I think that's probably the biggest difference. Yeah, cool. Anybody else? No? Thank you.
Okay. See, that wasn't so bad. So this is, again, I got a question for anyone who's involved with this project. How do you plan to incorporate the vision of the very children that the play portrays in the discussions around the theater in the future?
Anybody here? Anyone on our team?
I think more work. More work on the topic. And, more
Really, if you want to go into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, for me as a performer, it's exciting to work with this material that has a social sphere. And I think the answer to that is that more work to be done on this information with these stories. having these stories be heard and the transformative effect that can have on who hears it and who have told these stories. And I think that's the therapeutic side of art. And I think, as a culture, we're learning about this story. And as artists, we can also learn about this story. And it's part of our responsibility as performers, as thinkers, as social shouters, I guess you could say, to know about these stories and to use our bodies and our minds and our hearts to transmit something. So I'm super humbled to be a part of this, and I want to encourage people to tell their stories artistically. Yeah, so I think that's it.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add anything to that, or is that, yeah?
Yeah, good, yeah.
Okay. So, and again, I think this can go to any of the three of you, or even people in the audience. If you know the answer, especially to the second question here, these are both really short. What is our call? What is our call to action? And how can we help?
Ooh, I have an immediate gut reaction to that. Let's all argue for comprehensive immigration reform. Let's call our Congress people and demand that they respond to the challenges.
Yes. I'm with her. I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we also all need to know our history. We need to be better informed. We need to know how we got here. And we need to cultivate empathy. There's a lot of amnesia. This is a country of immigrants. And we need to acknowledge that and remember our history.
I want to say, please help us to erase the stereotypes.
Yes.
Because my English is not good enough, but I have a great culture and I am very intelligent. So, maybe talented, because she said. So, we can be a lot of things different that we have in the kind of Mexican or Central American.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to hear anything from the audience in
please.
response to those questions. Any thoughts you might have that you'd want to share? This is not a random audience. You're people with good reason to have strong opinions and actually important views on this. So, not to put anybody on the spot, but.
Well, I think your next step is Congress. I think the New York Times scene needs to go to Congress. And you can occupy space and whatever you need to do to make them hear it, but they need to hear it.
Tell them who you are.
I'm Sarah Palazzolo. I work here in D.C. I recently changed jobs, but I used to do a lot of work with unaccompanied minors who have recently resettled here in D.C. And I think the other thing is we can also target our local elected officials. I think they need to hear these stories. A lot of times the fights about sort of money that goes to different services happen at the local level. And so if our council members and our mayors and our school board members are knowing that we care about this, that we want them to allocate money and support and political will towards helping these children and their families, that's important. And also I think we need to denounce the enforcement, like this whole enforcement machinery that's been going on for so long. We really need to make our local elected officials hear that. So I would say keep up the pressure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sarah.
My name is Edgar Aranda. I work in Virginia, Legal Aid Justice Center. I think one of the issues, so there are many people are coming, even if we have immigration reform, people are going to be coming here. So we need definitely to address the issue of the violence, of the intervention of the United States in these countries. And I think that will alleviate this migration, and also United States has to recognize the damage that it has done for years.
I agree.
Anyone else? Sure.
I'm just wondering, as we work towards these long-term
Okay, let me just repeat the question because I think this is going out into the world. So it's basically what can we do in the more sort of immediate moment to help young people who are already here and who need all different kinds of assistance. And again, that's not for me to answer. It's for anyone else in the audience or on stage who.
I think we should have some of the Sarah and some of the other people. Luis, where are you?
wondering if Luis is here
Is he
still.
still here? People on the local, I think Sarah's point about the local level is incredibly important. So much is happening on the local level and needs to happen on the local level. I would love to hear, my work has largely been sort of the federal level and floating around among shelters and immigration courts, but I'd like to hear from people who are working deeply entrenched in the local level, what we can do.
Hi there, my name is Jenny Naz. I'm actually the Deputy Mayor for Education here in DC. And so one of the things that we need to do is make sure that our teachers and our folks in schools have a context for why some of our students may have the challenges that they face. I think that first scene, or sorry, it wasn't quite the first scene, where the boys are teasing each other and then that's what happens in schools all the time. And I think that it's making sure that we have that trauma-informed mindset that we need for this group of students in particular. So I can think of many more, but that's one that comes to mind right immediately.
I just also want to jump on that. That was something I really felt and heard from the kids that I interviewed and people that I've spoken to, is the way the trauma if there is no place to express, it's very dangerous. And so finding ways for the kids to have the kind of attention that they need, the kind of healing attention that's needed because they have been through a huge trauma. And just the separation alone, right, is hugely traumatic and needs to be addressed in some way. And I mean, it was interesting because at the school that I interviewed, a really wonderful school, wonderful counselors, but the kids didn't want to talk to the counselors. But they wanted to tell their stories to me. So there was something different about that way, that portal for them. And so, again, I think there's another way in which the arts and education can really work together very effectively. And that's a short-term thing that we could start doing more of.
I'm wondering if Miriam Gonzalez is here, the playwright from Imagination Stage. Those people are doing really, really interesting work in Bethesda. And I would like to follow up on what Jenny was saying. I attended a youth summit that was organized by the United States Conference on Catholic Bishops about 6 weeks ago. And these were not specifically unaccompanied minors. They were refugee minors who came to this country with already having certified that they were refugees, and so they had legal status coming. But what they told me I found absolutely horrifying, and many of them said that there was a huge problem with their, not only with the trauma issues, but with their teachers not understanding context and dealing in really, really negative and hurtful stereotypes. And these kids were incredibly articulate. They said, one of the things we need to do is educate our teachers in the traumas and the challenges that we have, and so that they see us as similar in, yes, they've had traumatic experiences, but they're students like the other students. They have particular challenges linguistically and culturally. But, the stories they told, not only about being bullied by, other kids, but, sort of being not treated very nicely by their teachers. So the necessity to educate people, for instance, one of my neighbors, she's a primary school teacher, and she was complaining that on a day when everyone was afraid there was going to be an immigration raid, it happened to coincide with a test day. And she was really annoyed that, a lot of the parents kept their kids home because they didn't want them to be, they didn't want the whole family to be picked up. So those kinds of things can easily be dealt with some kind of education and intervention in the schools.
Okay, so there are, I think, two questions left that we can use that haven't sort of already been overlapped by other things that we've talked about. The first one, and this does have a bit of overlap with issues that have already come up, but I think it might be worth kind of considering, just because it invokes the tragedy in Orlando, the tragedy, the mass shooting, the carnage in Orlando of a week plus ago, and it's about sort of the way that reports of these situations sort of come into public discourse, and we've gotten a lot of sort of individual stories about victims of that massacre. But when it comes to stories about these young people and migration in general, what we hear are numbers. So if there's anything else you would want to say about the way that pieces like Shelter can tell these individual stories, right, and deploy sort of this connection to empathy and to that kind of personal connection, actually to hopefully influence public policy.
Well, that was a major reason, impetus for me. I was reading these articles and it was all about the numbers. And I thought, well, where's the story? What are they leaving? Why? I was very, there's that part in the play that there are parts of the play I find so painful to hear in that New York Times section, even after hearing them a million times. But the whole thing about how can a mother do this? How could she let her child, assuming, making the assumption that mother doesn't love. Well, what you really need to be asking is, what kind of desperation would you have to be in to let your child, or to feel the need for your child to go through this dangerous journey to make it to shelter? And when I was at the shelter that I visited in San Diego, I saw a 12-year-old boy, and that boy, I thought, oh my God, this could be my son. My son is 12, and he's left a family member, and maybe going to another family member, but this rupture of the family that has been going on now for many generations. That's the source we need to be talking about, and especially a country that talks about the importance of family so much, right? Like, okay, families are important, so let's talk about what are we causing in terms of family rupture, and what can we do to change that?
I mean, I do think in some ways that there are these sort of concentric circles out, right, from sort of firsthand reporting, like the kind that Sonia Nazario sometimes does, right, to the kind of field work that you're doing with actual, individuals, right, to then the sort of the more imaginative, sort of freer response that you can do in a piece like you've done. All of them sort of help to open up that line, right, that sort of conduit of connection, right, that where empathy can flow and come to something. But getting it to then sort of manifest itself in the other things that we need, like legislation, and electoral habits that elect the right people into office to get this stuff done the way that we need it to get done, to change even the sort of a kind of
the narrative.
The narrative, right, and a kind of worldview about geopolitics and our direct responsibility historically for the violence that's happening there now, where we just don't see the cause because it's buried 30 years in the past.
I think that's one of the most brilliant contributions of this play, is reminding us that we as Americans are not innocent, that the policy decisions that have been made at all different levels have created the turmoil and chaos that these people are dealing with, and they are fleeing as a result of many of the decisions that have been made at the highest levels of our government.
It's my final the last question, and this is we'll end on a to the extent that there can be a hopeful note here, right? And of course there can be, but this is the limited hope. Where do you plan to take the piece next, and what are your plans for sort of circulating it, having it sort of live in the world after this moment?
Well, we are, I'm going to say beyond hoping, planning for a Northeast tour. We also have several places in California interested in the piece. So we're having a lot of conversations. And I've also, so there's the production itself, there are the workshops that we're going to be continuing. And then I received emails from people from everything from middle school teachers, high school teachers, college teachers, professional theaters around the country with an interest. And teachers saying, I want to do something that'll speak to my students. So we're getting the play published this summer so that it is available to be done in other places. So we're working on the plans. No Passport Press. No Passport. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
And the showcase tomorrow at Georgetown should help as well, right? So, yeah.
Hope so.
Small steps, baby steps. That's the last question, but we can still, if there's anyone else in the audience who'd like to ask something.
Are those the only two performances in the DC area?
For now.
I didn't think I would have anything to contribute, but there is a theater group called Theater Lab. The director is Deb Gottlieb. She started something called Story Corps. Some of the performances have been here. I miss them. They work with people in prisons, but you really would enjoy getting together with her if you still have time, because she does the kind of things you're doing, and if you wanted another venue here, it would be a natural fit.
Thank you so much. I will look into that. We will look into that.
But we really want this piece to be performed and to be seen in Georgia and Kansas and Texas
Oklahoma.
and right.
North Carolina.
Everywhere.
Georgia, Texas.
Okay, so I guess we're wrapping up. Or should I hand it to you?
Okay, let's hear it again for our moderator and panelist, Ricardo Ortiz. Thank you once again. And we appreciate everything that was brought this evening and earlier today from the Shelter creative team. Some members had to leave, but this was an amazing play to have featured here at the Kennedy Center on Millennium Stage. And we're so glad that Marissa and Martine and Susan were able to come and speak about the creativity that went behind the piece and what the hopes of its future is. Here at the Kennedy Center, Community Engagement, my name is Baye Harrell. I'm Program Manager of Community Engagement. I didn't mention that. I'm glad to be a part of bringing in this Salon series pressing issues, issues that deserve our attention, the opportunity to change hearts and minds, as you put it. These are the types of things that we've been doing here at the Kennedy Center through community engagement. This is the second Salon series piece that we've done. The first one was with Malcolm Jamal Warner, dealing with media images and African Americans. And both of these were broadcast, also streamed live. And we are really interested in continuing to engage these type of dialogues. And not only that, but we believe we're part of a creative ecosystem. So what that means is all the people that are here were curated or intentionally brought here to interact with other people. We have educators, we have artists, we have attorneys, and I'm sure we have much more in the room that we are going to give the opportunity for you to discover. So in a moment, we're going to turn the music back on. I'd like to thank again DJ Natty Boom and DJ Mother Shiester for bringing us the music this evening. We'd also like to thank the RA staff that's been supplying us with the food and drink this evening. And we're going to open up the floor and allow us to have an opportunity to mingle. So, again, you don't have to leave, okay? The intention is for you to be able to spend some time to connect, and that's why we have these name tags on. So, again, thank you once again for coming out, each and every one of you, and thank you to the creative team of Shelter. We appreciate it.
en el mata